Ladies and gentlemen, today we have Mr. Sudipta Biswas with us. Sudipta Biswas is an entrepreneur, leader, and strategist with a strong background in artificial intelligence. He has experience as a senior risk analyst at Goldman Sachs and is the founder of Engfi Labs, where he developed Umpire's View, the world's fastest AI-enabled umpiring assistant, demonstrating expertise in technology. He also co-founded Floworks, an AI startup integrating customer relationship management systems with Slack to boost sales productivity. Sudipta holds a dual degree from Indian Institute of Technology Kharagpur from the Department of Electronics and Electrical Communication Engineering, where he graduated top of his class and received the Institute Silver Medal. Welcome, Sudipta.
Thank you, Shivam. Thank you, Devendra. Thank you so much for the generous introduction.
All right. Sir, let's move on to the first question. I think it's a question that we've asked like almost every person who has joined us for an interview in Conversations of KGPians. And as you know that in the life of an IITian, one of the most beautiful journeys, or say to say the hardest journeys, is the joint entrance exam phase, right? The preparation for it, the effort that goes into it, right? So we asked every person who came here to like share their experience about the joint entrance exams, and same we would like to know how and how it went for you, and what are the things that you explored during your JE time. Some views about it, sir.
Okay, all right. I think it's been quite a lot of time since I prepared for JE. Precisely, if I remember, it was I gave JE on 2011, right? That's when I took the exam, and so obviously started preparation around about 2009. And I think that time there used to be two papers, right? There was no, I think, JE Main and Advanced at the time. There was a single JE. And I remember, when I, just gave the board exam of class 10, and I don't come from a really tier 1 city, right? So there are not a lot of, people who aspire to go to IITs and stuff like that, right? So, when I gave my board exam, and then reality struck me that, I found people preparing for JE even from class 8th and 9th, right? And I was like, okay, like where do I start now? Luckily at my town, which is Behrampur, this is like a tier 2, tier 3 kind of city, I would say, in West Bengal, right? Uh, During that time, there was not not a lot of, I would say, the professional JE coaching centers that you find in, let's say, Kolkata, Delhi, or Kota for that matter, right?
Mhm.
But luckily at our time, there were three professors in our, sort of in our locality who were sort of, retired professors from another reputed college here. And they actually took up the task on themselves to sort of, prepare the next set of generations that can really go into IIT, right? Um, and luckily, I was in that particular, I would say, year where um, uh, all of them were actually teaching us, right, simultaneously, right? So that's how it started, right? 2009, right? I remember, and 2011 I remember very clearly because 1 week before the JE, right, India won the World Cup. And
Yeah.
luckily it was not the Saturday just before the exam date, it was 1 week before, prior to that, right? So luckily, there's no sort of hampering the preparation, last minute preparation. But coming back to the question, I think this, how the JE experience and how I started it. So this is how I personally approached it, right? I didn't think that, okay, I have to pass an exam or get into IIT, but I genuinely enjoyed, I would say, studying all the three subjects, right? Um, I think a lot of people do love maths and physics by a lot extent, right? I also did the same thing. But even in chemistry, right, I very much appreciated organic chemistry, right? It felt like sort of relaxation and art to me, right? All those chemical reactions and all those things happening. And I really took upon the organic chemistry much better than the other aspect of chemistry, by the way. Uh, but generally, I liked studying all the subjects and preparing for that. Right? I think my bit of advice to everyone aspiring to go to IITs, at least for the JEE time, would be really fall in love with the subjects. And if you can manage to do that, right, then the next steps should follow by themselves.
That was really great advice for the JEE aspirants who are preparing for the JEE. So basically, when you arrive in the IIT, there's a after JEE transformation which happens in everyone, which basically leads to a personality that we are right now. So the most important, and the hall plays an important role in the after JEE transformation. So the most important question for the KGPians that we generally ask from everyone: what was a hall in the KGP?
Okay, I was like, start till end, I was Azadian, right? I went into Azad Hall in my first year, right? A lot of my, sort of peers, they were in Triple M for initial, I think, first year, and then they moved to different halls, right? But I was in Azad in first year and then left Azad in fifth year, right?
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So definitely, hall does play a role because you get to, I'd say, uh, it provides a very close knit environment to bond with other persons who are, let's say, not even in your department, right? In many cases, I think the bonds that we get done in hall are much more deeper than that we develop in departments, right? Because these are the people, you go to eat with, you sort of hang out all the time, right? So, and these are the people, I would say, you get a lot of good advice from, right? You also get a lot of bad advice as well. But that's how close knit I think the whole system is in not just KGP but in all IITs, right? So yeah, I think that should answer your question.
So how was your campus stay at the IIT Kharagpur? What was your most memorable experiences that happened in during your campus days?
Uh, I don't think it would be fair to single out one particular memory here. Uh, Nothing probably. I wouldn't say like this is the particular moment, but I think there are various moments, uh, and the moments were obviously different in first year, in second year, and then in third, fourth, fifth year, right? And as you go, I think it's sort of going through the campus life is also sort of like a spiritual journey. In first year, everyone would be high in energy and okay, we'll change the world kind of thing. And then by the time second year comes, people sort of get into the motion, and then they sort of put all the aspiration on the backside. But again, come the third year, fourth year, people also again get serious again. Now placements are there. Now let's say internships are there. People start applying for, I think, outside universities, right? And then finally everything happens is in your final semester you are like, okay, I have nothing else to do, right? And people start introspecting, okay, I should have done this, I should have done that in my last 4 or 5 years. uh, so nothing, I would say no single uh, sort of what I say single sort of instance that I can point out, but along the journey there are various things that I think all of us do get introduced, right? Like in the first year, there's too much focus on academics. By the time second year happens, we start to get into things like, there are Spring Fest happening, there are Sitage happening, all these different things are happening. There are holidays, and like people really get into those kind of things. I think though there are definitely a lot memories around that. And then by second or third year, I think you get sort of, uh, in second year probably, yeah, you get I would say sort of oriented by your seniors, right? And then by come the third year you start orienting your juniors. So all these things happen, which, like, looking back is a lot of fun. uh yeah, so no single sort of memories, I would say, but probably a collection of a lot of good memories.
That was really, I would say, I think that took you down a good memory lane, and I suppose there's a lot of memories that that might come striking to you today, right? And I suppose for the audience too. I mean, I think it's a message to everyone that 10 years down the line, I suppose each one of us will be speaking like this to someone asking to us how was our IIT KGP journey, right? So that's
Yeah.
kind of yeah. So, Sudipta, moving on to an academically oriented question. So we can see that like you were exceptional at your core electronics and having finished first in your class. But even after like pursuing research internships in your core, how was that how was that your career shifted towards finance and data?
Mhm.
Because this aspect amongst us KGPians, it's a little more vivid. At least now that people they think of job switches. I mean the career switches a lot. Like someone in core wants to switch to finance, or someone in finance wants to switch back to software. Let's say. So these career switches are something that we are very fascinated about, and would be really nice if you could enlighten us about yours.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's pretty important question, right? And by the time you guys get into third or fourth year, I think you all should generally think about it on a very serious note, right? Because some of the decisions that you're going to make in third and fourth year can probably define a good chunk of your career, at least in the initial stage, if not the whole career, right? Um, so I'll probably elaborate my thought process of how it went, and obviously it wasn't perfect, right? And maybe I can, looking back, I'll also tell what I could have done better, right? So I think when you get into that phase, probably what you first need to make sure is that whether research is something that you want to go, and whether job is something you want to go, right? I think having a very clear mindset would really help here, right? Um, I would not try to hedge one against another, right? But try to go all in. Now, I had done prior to my job, I had done 2 research internships. And truth to be told, initially I wanted to pursue a research career, right? But by the time I finished the second sort of internship, I kind of realized that obviously a lot of good things happen in research, but I wanted to probably have much more immediate and sort of much more clearer impact on I wouldn't say on the world, but let's say on something, right? Which was something that I was not feeling I could achieve through a research career, right? And honestly, by that time, by fourth year, I think by fifth year, I was sort of a little bit puzzled as to what career aspect should I choose, right? I think this is something you all will go through, and it's probably natural because we don't have a lot of data points, right? Many and people who are in probably four-year course, BTech courses, in like I was in dual, but I think people. So I probably have two chances to see, okay, whether I would like a career in job or career in research. But people who are in BTech probably won't have more than one chance to do that, right? And that is where I would advise that even when your semester is going on, don't just restrict yourself within academics, right? Like maybe pursue some, let's say, internship in some startups, some companies, right, to see if job is something you like. And also, if you are sort of, let's say, interested in research, do that as well on the sideline in addition to academics, right? So that by the time fourth year or fifth year comes, you have a lot more data point to basically, get your sort of find your answers, right? And not just one or two data points, right? And for example, in my company currently, right, there are in fact people from KGP who is doing internships since he was in second year, right? Currently he's in fourth year. He's been doing the internship continuously, right? There are people. There's one person from IIT Bombay who is doing internship for the last 7 to 8 months, right? Right. He's continuing it throughout the college semester, although he's putting in part-time efforts during that time, right? But you know, basically he's sort of converting it to full time whenever there is a college vacation or something, right? But what important insights that they are getting through this experience is that they are obviously, learning a lot of skills and everything, but they're also learning a lot about themselves. Okay, is job a career that they like or not, right? And that is something you also test, right? You also test it out, right? If you are interested in research, maybe email, maybe try to do some outside projects with professors here, or maybe professor outside, right? Do all these things while you are still in college, and I can sort of guarantee you college is the time where you're going to have maximum amount of time in your hand, right? Once you leave college and go into either job or let's say a research, right, you'll not have a lot of time at your hand outside of work to try and experiment this thing, right? So this is the best time that you can do a lot of experimentation, right? So utilize the time very judiciously, I would say, right? And coming to my sort of point, so how I went into finance and other things. So when I was taking up, I was basically okay. So by the time my second internship ended, I was sort of, I would say, more than 50% sure that research is something that I don't want to take up immediately, right? I was confused, to be very precise. And what I thought is that let me take a job to today, and if I don't like it, then I'll at least have one data point, right, to make a comparison, because I haven't done an industrial internship prior to that, right, in my college. And that was my thought process, right? And finance and Goldman Sachs was a choice I did because coding was something I didn't greatly enjoyed during that time. But finance and maths was something I sort of liked, right? Sort of liked quite a bit, right? In electronics, you do have a lot of maths and statistics involved, right? So these are something I took a lot of liking on, and I thought, even if I have to pursue a career in job, right, this is something I can do, right? So that was my thought process, right? So that's how I went into finance, and then it took me into different directions. And yeah, I think this is probably the question you asked, Shivam, if I'm not wrong, right?
So basically, you told us about the data points, that we should have the data point. But we are on the other side of the corporate right now. Could you share how the life of a GS analyst looks like? How the life of a GS analyst looks? How his days looks like? And what are the prospects of being in the GS as an analyst? Because there is some, after just say after consulting, you get some startups or CEOs offer or something like that. So what are the future prospects of a GS analyst? Then how a career trajectory looks like, if even if you are in GS, or you leave GS after 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years after that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So if you're in GS, or let's say any finance company for that matter, right? And generally there are two career options you have. Either you remain in that particular domain for a long time, right? Um, and that does give you good career opportunities. So in GS, typically you get promoted to VP level in 4 to 5 years, right? And typically, if you work really hard and if you are very dedicated, you can get paid very well, right? The bonuses and everything can exceed even more than 100% of your salary in many cases, right? So you can get paid really well in GS specifically. So if you want to pursue, let's say if you think that okay, GS is something I want to build my career at, right? Then you really have to work hard, and there is a very structured ladder that you can sort of rise. You can become, let's say, VP in 4 years. You can become MD in about 8 to 10 years or something, right? And then you can rise up the rank, become partners, right? So that's like a very sort of, I would say, smooth journey, right? But there are a lot of people, right? I think who might not like working in finance and GS sector, and I was probably one of them, right? So after 2 years, I sort of felt that okay, this is not something that I would really enjoy doing for the rest of my life, right? And if that's the case, I think then what you should do is that probably within 2 to 2.5 years is something where you should make the career switch, right? that would be best, right? Because after that, sort of, there are two sort of, factors that come in. One is a technical factor, because in companies like GS, you will get to know a lot of uh, what I say. Um, you'll learn a lot of things, but most of the knowledge would be very much centered in and around GS, right? It is not very much transferable to other sort of career. So let's say you want to become software engineer after working 6 years or 5 years in GS, that the skill set that you have acquired is not easily transferable, right? So if you're willing to make a career switch, do it early, most preferably within 2 years, 2.5 years, right? And it's honestly, it's never late to make a career switch. But all I'm trying to say is that, in career, like, if you are investing your money, right, there is a compounding effect that happens. That's the same thing with career, right? So if you get your true calling very early in your career, you will get a lot of compounding effect there, right? So it's always wise to sort of try figure out where your real interest lie, right? If it's not GS, then try figuring out whether it's startup that I should do, whether it's software engineering I should do, whether it's research I should do, right? So try experimenting that as early as possible and make a clear choice as early as possible, right? So that would be my advice, right? But anyway, like, it's never late to make a career switch. I know a lot of people who did work in GS for more than 5 years and then made a switch to software engineering, right? So that's still there, right? So it's never too late, right? If you find yourself in that zone, I would say it's never too late.
Thank you so much
Okay.
for your insights, Sudipta. Like they were like great insights, and I suppose a lot of us like now happen to know that how career switches actually work and how it was with you. I mean, a real example is what we all like crave
Yeah,
for, because फंडे तो सब जगह से हमको मिलते रहते हैं कि ऐसे करना है
right.
वैसे करना है. So that was really nice. Okay, so Sudipta, you have like three startups that you endeavored upon. So can you please share some of the insights that young entrepreneurs need to know? Because I mean, entrepreneurs on a boom right now, and even in our college, there are a lot of young entrepreneurs. So if there's a piece of message that you want to like deliver to them.
And
Yeah,
also, sir,
absolutely.
I just like I would like to add a little more question. Sir, how a day in the how a day looks like in the life of an entrepreneur? Because sir, you seem very busy, sir, throughout the day. So how a day looks like in your life?
Okay, yeah, I'll take one by one. So yeah, to answer Shivam's question, uh, no, sorry, can you repeat the question? My bad. It's
I
quite
mean, a
late in the
piece of advice to
piece of
young
advice.
entrepreneurs. Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. So the first piece of advice I want to give is, like, if you have the slightest sort of slightest sort of interest in pursuing entrepreneurship, the best time to start is right in college, right? Um, I think if you think, let's say, maybe do a very simple litmus test, right? So there are, let's say, famous people in entrepreneurships, right? Let's say Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, even in India today, let's say Ritesh Agarwal, Ola founders, Bhavish, right? So these are, let's say, some of the famous people that are there in entrepreneurship who built a very successful company. Then let's say there are successful people in, let's say, uh, executive positions, right? Let's say who started their career as a job and rose up the rank, right? Example would be, let's say, Sundar Pichai. Example would be, let's say, um, Satya Nadella. Even let's say some of the seniors you may know that who are currently, let's say, high-ranking people in some of the big companies, right? And then let's say there is a third class of, let's say, people who are, let's say, good researcher, right? They're, let's say great AI researcher, young good fellow, these kind of people, right? So let's say these are three distinct class of I would say personalities, right? If you are in college, just do a litmus test where which class of people is something that you really fascinate being yourself, right? Or you get fascinated with, right? Uh, Many a times, let's say, that will give a sense that where your interest lies, right? right? So if you find yourself fascinated with, how Bhavish Agarwal, I think, built Ola, right? Or how the Bansals, built Flipkart, right? If that is the story that fascinates you, there's a high chance that you are probably to build for startups, right? You should be building startups, right? Similarly for the other cases, right? So what if the interest is, if you find yourself in the first category, best time to build startup is right in college, because again the same principle applies. You have a lot of time at your hand, right? In fact, I know a lot of founders who have actually started building from college while they were in third year or fourth year, right? And they are now doing really well, right? In fact, most of the skill set that you probably require for building a startup is something you already have while you were in second, third, or fourth year, right? So it's not early, right? A lot of the successful startups, if you see, all sort of successful companies have been built by founders who started really early, probably in teenagers, right? So I think that would be the first piece of advice. Second would probably be, um, a lot of time, as if you're trying to really build some startups, we tend to do a lot of thinking, and let's a lot of, I would say, calculation. Okay, what if something goes wrong? What if something does not fall right? Right. The advice I would like to give is just start. Right. There's no sort of the exact $100 billion idea or something like that. Right. The ideas keep on evolving as you keep on working on it. Right. In fact, when I started Floworks, the idea that we are working is completely different, right, from the idea that we are working right now. But it went through a lot of iterations after, let's say, a lot of customer sort of conversations, a lot of industry conversations, and everything, right? The same thing applies for you guys as well, right? If you're building something, just start. Don't think a lot, right? Obviously, be practical. Do do it's a series of back of the envelope calculations to make sure that the idea is viable and everything. But don't think a lot on specifically the idea part, right? There is nothing called great idea. A lot of thing depends on execution. A lot of thing depends on how the idea evolves over time after customer interactions and all these different things, right? So yeah, I think those will be the two large piece of advice I would want to give. And coming to the question that Devendra asked, is that what how is the day as an entrepreneur like, right? So okay, so it will be very eventful, right? In the sense that, well, if you wake up early in the morning, no matter how much you try to sort of fix, okay, I'll do some XYZ exercise, some pranayama, some yoga, but eventually you start working right after you wake up, and you'll probably not end working till you sleep, right? But you'll not feel tired with this exercise, right? Um, so that's another principle. I think what I'd like to highlight here. If you are ever in doubt, what's the right career for you? Like, do another litmus test. You know, think of the exercise, or think of the activity that, if you do that activity, you tend to draw energy from that, right? Right. You don't get exhausted, right? So, for example, if you go on, let's say, running for 100 meter, you'll feel exhausted after it, right? But the best of the athlete, you'll feel exhausted, but the best of the athlete will actually not, right? In many cases, if you see, I think there's a common example. Like, I heard of this, I've never experienced this, but let's say the boxers, right? So as the matches went, go by, right? Then it's said that even though they are getting hit by the opponent, they feel much more energized into the contest, right? And they give even more than what they used to give at the start of the contest. Uh, so yeah, that's basically it, right? So it's definitely eventful, but because you will know that it's your own company, right? It's your own sort of baby. You'll not feel exhausted by it. And the day you start feeling exhausted by it, then probably is you're no longer enjoying it, right? And you should probably not pursue it. But obviously, having said that, there will be days, there will be moments where you feel, I would say, uh, not exhausted, but where you'll feel, okay, nothing is going in my way, right? You'll feel this disappointment, right? And if you're a startup founder, you probably have to deal with a lot of disappointments, but the wins, right, that we'll find in between the disappointed will probably be much more worth than the disappointment, right? So I think someone really said it very succinctly, is that if you're building a company, you only have to go wrong once. You only have to go right once. You may go wrong multiple times, right? But if you go right once, then probably you have built a great company.
That's truly insightful, sir. So basically, your new startup is is in the field of the AI. And with the upcoming age of the quantum computing, what do you think how the AI, how the trajectory of AI will be like, and how powerful AI will be to replace the humans, and what sectors the AI could never replace the humans? What do you think about it?
Got it. Okay. I think this is a pretty heavy question, right? Even I don't have answers to all parts of it. But if you see the trajectory of how the development of AI has been, specifically over the last, I would say, 10 years, right? Obviously, AI has been in some form over the last 70, 80 years, right? But most of the development in AI has been achieved in the last 10 years, right? And 10 years back, if you see, the thing in the discussion was that when AI will come, um, the mundane, the repetitive work and the repetitive job kind of things will probably get replaced the first, right? That was basically the idea. And that did get replaced. But if you see today, because of the advent of generative AI, what we are seeing is that, probably the creative aspects of human lives are getting replaced, right? Much more rapidly than the non-creative aspects, right? Like today, you can create arts, you can create sort of piece of text, blogs, and all these things, right? Using generative AI and LLMs, right? So these are actually some of the more creative aspects of human beings, right? So honestly, I don't know. I don't have an answer like how this will this will sort of shape out. Uh, but it's almost, I would say, evident that AI will lead to sort of huge number of jobs being displaced and being sort of replaced, right? We are in fact already seeing this trend that you're probably seeing that there are a lot of sort of large tech companies that are laying off software engineers and laying off other sort of engineers from the team. And part of the reason is actually this, right? Because today, because of various AI tools and everything, writing software codes is sort of um, becoming a lot easier, right? Uh, all you probably need to do is, which is the crucial part, is sort of design the system, and then AI can write the system based on that design that you have made, right? So initially, if you are, let's say, employing uh, one person who could actually write the code, but today probably that person is not needed, right? You just need one person who can design the system, and AI will write the code, right? So that is definitely leading to a lot of sort of software jobs being cut down, right? And we are probably going to see more of that in the coming days. And that's why, sort of I probably give this advice to sort of people like you who will sort of graduate in the next 1 or 2 years, is that be little mindful of this change, sort of socio-economic change that's happening outside, right? I know within campus is sort of a bubble and cocoon that we are in, right? But this landscape of software jobs is changing very fast, right? Uh, and be very mindful of that. And if you be mindful of that, then only you can acquire the skills that you need to be relevant in the job market, in career, or even like in any other other aspects, right? So keep that in mind. For example, today, one of the jobs that sort of got created because of AI is that, something called, they're calling as prompt engineering, right? So writing good prompts is actually a legit job, right? Then because of this large language models and everything, uh, AI ops or ML ops, right? So there's a skill set that you need to sort of, host large AI models in servers, right? That is getting sort of prominent nowadays, right? So keep in mind, just keep your eyes open for these socioeconomic changes that are happening, right? And it's very real, by the way, right? We're already seeing signs that, some of the IITs probably are not being able to place all the 100% of the students, right? Like I'm reading this sort of news from online sources, but yeah, if that's true, then this socioeconomic change is actually real, and be very mindful and conscious about that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your insights, sir, about AI. I mean, someone who's worked in AI so much can, I suppose, I think the best advice can come from you because having worked in that arena, I suppose the kind of environment that you've been in, I think you clearly know what's going on in the industry. And so, just following up to the AI part, you've been into the non-tech part, of the jobs. So, sir, can you forecast whether consulting and finance jobs, the non-tech jobs that are popularly known as, will survive the storm of AI for the next 25 years?
So see one thing, right? So if you take the consulting job, right? Um, like if I really sort of dumb down to the core essence of a consulting job, is that, let's say your client has some problem, and you need to find answer to the problem by doing primary research, doing secondary research, right? Uh, and then sort of present the problem in a way that maybe your client can execute that. Present the solution in a way that maybe your client can execute that, right? That's basically in a nutshell what a consulting job is, right? Now, what I see is that AI can replace some part of it, right? For example, let's say something called like a secondary research, right? Let's say, which is something where you need to go and search across various sort of blogs, documents, articles, knowledge sources, and gather information for your part. That's something today's AI can do really well, right? Because you see these large language models that is probably trained on all of internet data, right? If you can ask it a question, it will give you the answer, right? But a lot of, like, to my knowledge, a lot of consulting job is also about, doing a lot of primary research, which involves a lot of operations of actually going and speaking with people, their first-hand experience, right? And that's something like I definitely don't see AI replacing as yet, right? Um, so if you ask me, I would say, any job that requires this a lot of primary research, right? A lot of operations, talking to people. That is something that will be least affected by AI, right? So consulting is probably one of the job that will not be affected by AI a lot. That's my take on that, right? Whereas if you see a purely coding or software job is something that does not require a lot of people to people interaction.
Correct.
Is basically given certain system design, you write the code. There's something will probably be replaced very fast, right? On coming to the finance part, okay, again, I think on the finance side there are actually two aspects, right? If you are, let's say, actual trader and supporting the trader, which involves a lot of client management and all these different things. That's something will still be relevant, but the other aspects of it, right? Let's say building good alphas, good basically models, and those kind of things is something where AI can come. But again, because it's also a very niche sort of domain, right? I don't see it getting impacted uh, very quickly, right? Because fundamentally, you know, any AI system also is trained on data, right? And most of the data of finance and everything are very close source, right? So for example, GS would not definitely publish all its trading data, all its pricing data, model data to publicly, right? And what that means is that all the GPT-4, GPT-3 kind of models are not really trained on that. and therefore they cannot replace traditional way of doing finance, right? And that's why I think like both the finance and consulting job will still be very relevant in coming age.
All all right. Thank you. So, am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible, Shubham.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sudipta, for that. And yes, that was actually my personal question, running into my head like for like quite some time now, because having been a little inclined towards non-tech, there are funding that I get from people that you should be doing core right now because EC is something is not replaceable. Everything else will be replaced. So I'm getting fund days like these, and I think talking to like distinguished people like you, then we actually get the real perspective. Okay, that things will be like what in the coming future. So that's something that I'm really grateful to you. So Dipta, now we've got a short rapid fire to end with. So it's just a set of small questions, and you just need to select between the two options. All right. So just like we'll get to know you better with this. All right. Should we start, Sudipta?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So EC or finance?
EC.
All right. Uh, Favorite book about entrepreneurship?
uh, 0 to 1, Peter Thiel.
All right. Yes. GS or JPMC?
GS.
All right. Bengal or Toronto?
Bengal, definitely.
All right. Books or movies?
Movies.
Okay. We were expecting books rather. Startup in college or startup after college?
In college.
In college, yeah. Research or startup? I think this is clear.
Startups.
Yeah. So like that's with our rapid fire. Finally, like just one last question to our is for our community. What is like one piece of golden advice you would like to share to everyone watching this video? Mostly it'll be students. I mean undergraduate students. So you can keep that in, like.
Hmm. Okay. If it's one piece of advice, I'd say try sort of experimenting as much as you can in college, right? Try to gather as much data point as I mentioned. That will that will give you, I'd say, much better perspective as to what career you should choose, right? And try falling in love with that particular career, right? If there's something not happening, switching is never too late, right?